Everybody comes to the spiritual path at exactly the moment that Shiva and Shakti wake up inside of them. Swami Lakshmanjoo, before he left this world, he gave us a very, very important insight to one of his experiences. So the agora energies are the supreme energies which lift everybody up, Swatchand Bhairava. And this picture is very, very symbolic. This is a letter that Swamiji wrote shortly after he had that experience. But from that day, Swamiji, every day in the ashram in 1989, right through to when he left this world in 91, every night we would recite the Aghora mantra and the Bahurupa Garbha stotra. Some manuscripts to study, and one of them was the Shiva Sutras, just the sutras, and on top of it, it had composed by Bal Brahmachari Swami Lakshmanjoo, Gupta Ganga, Ishba, Kashmir. Yeah. You feel a vibration, a tangible vibration that you can't quite grasp, you can't understand, you can't intellectualize what it is. And he locked the door, and I stood there. Everybody stood. They waited until the door was locked. And then the next thing it opened again, and he looked across and saw me. He said, "You will come again, won't you?" Doing pruning trees, demolishing his cow shed to build. In India, there are three main pitas. There's Kamakya in the center, there's Shardapit on this side, and then there's Punagiri on the left. And they're the three Devis, basically, that overlook all of India, based on the Sanskrit alphabet, and the two alphabet goddesses, Matrika and Malini. And Swamiji said, "You're a scholar, how would you like to study this?" And a big part of Kashmir Shaivism is meditation in action. It's not just the picture you have behind you of, Babaji Avatar. Swamiji had his darshan when he was 17 years old. When he went to the forest in Kashmir, Abhinavagupta has written a beautiful hymn. He used to summarize the most intense, the most deep philosophical texts. And for his simple devotees, he said he would write hymns, stotras. And this is 10 years before Swamiji is born. And he had his meal, and as he sat there in Swamiji's house, he said, "I have a very strong inner feeling that a great saint will be born into your dynasty." He told Swamiji's father, "In the future, a great saint will be born into your household."
So Swami wow.
Swami Vivekananda. And Vamana is to bring creation out again. So there you have, in Bhairava's own name, you have the essence of Trika. Vivekananda, at the end of the 10 verses, which are the 10 verses penned by Abhinavagupta, Swami Vivekananda spontaneously recited a verse. Wow. And they overheard this, like Sanat Kumara overheard this, and he wrote this. But Swami said that these traditions are timeless, because Shiva and Shakti, as there's 100 verses just on the Sanskrit alphabet. I'm sharing whatever I have learned from Swamiji. I'm not a guru. I feel very fortunate, very blessed to have spent time at his feet, for him to and to be able to share this knowledge, which John and Denise Hughes spent a good portion of their life recording.
अखण्डमण्डलाकारं व्याप्तं येन चराचरं तत्पदं दर्शितं येन तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः।
नमस्ते दोस्तों, ऑस्ट्रेलिया वाला में मैं अनुराग सहाय आपका स्वागत करता हूं। ऑस्ट्रेलिया वाला के इस खंड सेगमेंट व्यक्तित्व में मैं आपका साक्षात्कार उन व्यक्तित्वों से कराता हूं जो अपने एक विशेष प्रकाश से चमक रहे हैं। इसी दिव्य प्रकाश को सहजने के प्रयास में हम आज ऐसे व्यक्तित्व से मिलने जा रहे हैं जो सिविल इंजीनियर हैं, राइटर हैं, एडिटर हैं, मेडिटेशन टीचर हैं और कश्मीर शैविज्म शास्त्र के ज्ञाता हैं, उसके स्तोत्रों, मंत्रों और कर्मकांडों के ज्ञाता हैं, वेदों के, आयुर्वेद और मरण चिकित्सा के भी वो जानकार है। बहुत ही कम उम्र में ये महर्षि महेश योगी जी के संपर्क में आए और उनके साथ 8 साल तक काम करते हुए ये ट्रांसेंडेंटल मेडिटेशन में सिद्ध हो गए। इन्होंने 3,500 से ऊपर व्यक्तियों को टीएम की शिक्षा दी है। वर्ष 1983 में कश्मीर शैव मत के महागुरु स्वामी लक्ष्मणजू महाराज जी से मिले और उनके बन के कश्मीर में ही रह गए। 1991 में स्वामी जी के ब्रह्मलीन होने तक ये उनके साथ रह के उनकी देखरेख में शास्त्र और बाकी शास्त्रों का ज्ञान स्वामी जी से प्राप्त करते रहे। 1988 में स्वामी जी की आज्ञा से स्वामी जी की शिक्षाओं की रिकॉर्डिंग को कलमबद्ध करने का काम इन्होंने शुरू किया। इन्होंने 20 साल तक स्वामी जी की शिक्षाओं के 700 घंटे की रिकॉर्डिंग को कलमबद्ध किया। ये रिकॉर्डिंग जॉन एंड डेनिस ह्यू ने करी थी। इन्होंने जॉन ह्यू के साथ मिलकर शिव सूत्रों, विज्ञान भैरव, भगवत गीता, शिव स्तोत्रावली, परमार्थ सार आदि कई ग्रंथों का संपादन स्वामी लक्ष्मणजू महाराज की शिक्षाओं के आधार पर किया। ये यूनिवर्सल शैव फेलोशिप कैलिफोर्निया के फुल टाइम सदस्य हैं। आइए हम सब मिलकर स्वागत करते हैं जॉर्ज बर्सेलार जी का, जो अपने गुरु के प्रकाश से दीप्तमान हो रहे हैं। जॉर्ज जी, आपका इस पॉडकास्ट में बहुत बहुत स्वागत है। मोस्ट वेलकम जॉर्ज।
Namaskar, and greetings to your audience.
Thank you.
It was auspicious that this is Australia because I grew up in Australia.
Yes, this channel also called Australia Wala, so it's a very good coincidence.
In the western suburbs of Sydney, before there was a great influx of people from the great land of knowledge and Devi, and I grew up within a stone's throw of the temple that was built in Maze Hill, the South Indian temple. Yeah, we used to play cricket right where that temple was as kids. It was a vacant lot. But that's beside the point. I'm very, very happy to have the opportunity. It's been a long time we've been planning this to address your audience. And Swami Lakshmanjoo, before he left this world, he gave us a very, very important insight to one of his experiences. He had the direct darshan of Swatchand Bhairava. Wow. It's the form that Lord Shiva appears. It's one of the many forms that he appears. Swatchand Bhairava, Aghora. And at that time, it was 1988, Aghorataari or Swachandanatha told Swamiji about the importance of the Aghora mantra. This is not to be mixed up with Agoris. This is the Aghora mantra, which is, it comes from, the Vedic text, but it's slightly different in Kashmir. And I would like to
go ahead. Interrupt, George. Just wanted to know, what is this Aghora mantra which you are talking about, and how this Aghora mantra is different in Kashmir, used in Kashmir, than it is in other parts like Aghori part. So I want to understand that.
Okay. Before we do, I will. I'm going to share my screen.
Yep.
And traditionally, see, we've been doing webinars for the last 4.5 years, every week. And at the beginning of each one, we recite the Aghora mantra and give a slight meaning that Swami Lakshmanjoo gave. So I'll do that, and then we can go to that question. Okay. Let me share the screen here. Okay. So the meter that they do in Kashmir is slightly different to most others. And Om Aghorabhyo to Gorebhyo Aghorataari Bhyascha Sarvata Sharva Sarvebhyo Namaste Rudra Rupebhya Aghorabhyo to Gorebhyo Aghorataari Bhyascha Sarvata Sharva Sarvebhyo Namaste Rudra Rupebhya Aghorabhyo to Gorebhyo Aghorataari Bhyascha Sarvata Sharva Sarvebhyo Namaste Rudra Rupebhya. O Lord Shiva, You alone transform yourself into all forms, into the forms of the powers of Rudra as Aghora, the enlightening and uplifting energy, Aghorataari, the frightful darkening energy which pushes one down, and Ghora, the energy which keeps one fixed, neither rising or falling. These forms, embodied in Rudra Shiva, are helpful to aspirants while they are aware, and frightful for the ones who are ignorant, pushing them down and down. And before I stop the screen share, I would like to share, this is a picture of Swatchandanatha, the picture which was commissioned by Swamiji to be painted, and it hangs in his temple, in his Amriteshwara Shiva temple in Kashmir at his ashram in Srinagar.
Indeed.
So this picture is taken of Aghoranatha or Swatchandanatha, the descriptions in the Swachanda Tantra, and he is known as Swachanda Bhairava, Aghoranatha, the Lord of the three Aghora energies. Okay, so I will go back here to.
So can you, George, can you just explain a little bit more detail about this mantra's meaning? Can you little bit decipher it further for the normal user who has first time listening to it? Because I'm getting a goosebump looking at the picture itself of Bhairava.
I'll share my screen again. That's the mantra itself. There are three supreme energies in Kashmir Shaivism. These are known as para, supreme energy, para, medium supreme, and then apara, or considered to be inferior energies. This is why Kashmir Shaivism is known throughout as Trika Shaivism. It's the original name.
Yes.
Anuttara Trika. Trika means there's only three things that are happening in this whole universe. There's only three activities that are going on, and in the background of those three activities are Shiva and Shakti. There's space and time in which everything's happening. So the Aghora energies are the supreme energies which lift everybody up. We have these energies dancing in our life all the time. All three are working at all times. When you have positive, uplifting thoughts, you know the Aghora Shaktis in your own body, in your own mind, in your own world around you, they're lifting you up. Just the love of a child, a friendship, trying to help somebody. The Ghora energies, on the other hand, or the Aghorataari energies, are also part of that. They push you down into the world. They make you stuck. You get lost in the world. You get lost in thought. You forget who you are. And that happens to all of us. Yes. And the Ghora energies in between, they're the connecting rod. They keep us stuck. We neither go up or down. And how they work, Swami Lakshmanjoo said, is very interesting because they make us feel that we know what we know. They make us feel that whatever knowledge we've gained is all there is. There's nothing beyond that. So an engineer is stuck. I'm a civil engineer. I'm stuck in the engineering world.
Yes.
I don't know science. I don't know how to operate on a person. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a dentist. I live in the world of the knowledge that I've gained. But knowledge in Kashmir Shaivism is much more than that. It's when you have the knowledge of yourself, you have a glimpse into the knowledge which is universal, which is everywhere. So these three energies are working in all living beings, from the smallest mosquito up to Brahma, up to Vishnu, up to Rudra, up to Shiva. And if they weren't working, there would be no creation. And how they manifest in our own lives is through what's called Icha, Jnana, and Kriya. Our will, Icha, Jnana, and Kriya mean our will, our knowledge, and our action. For everything that we do in this world, it starts with an impulse of will. Like I'm thirsty, I want a drink of water. That's an impulse that comes to us. Then the next thing is we put the knowledge together of, okay, water. I need a cup. I need a glass. The water is over there in that direction at the tap, at the bibgog. And Kriya is you get up and you actually do that. This is happening spontaneously for all living beings. You have a desire, an impulse, the knowledge of how to fulfill that desire, and you get up and you do that. And this flow of these three energies, these three Shaktis, the Aghora Devis, is why it's so important in Shaivism to understand, because it's the story of how we function. They're not something separate from ourselves.
This is what I wanted you to tell us, that this is not separate from us. This is inside us and in everything. It is happening.
It is such an important point of Kashmir Shaivism to understand that the world around us is a projection of our own consciousness. And everything that is happening outside of us has its seed form inside of us. The seeds are there, and everything else is happening around. And the Swamiji says the proof of that is when you dream. When you dream and you close the windows and the doors of your bedroom, it's completely dark. You can even have the blanket over your head. Everything's so dark, but you see in a dream, you see what's going on. You see the pictures in your own dream, and you create those from your past impressions. So when we're stuck in a dream, we're stuck. All time changes. We never hardly look at our watch in a dream and say, I better hurry up because I've got to get home and have dinner. Dreams just go, they flow. And in the Vedas, it says this external world, Vashishta said to Rama, this world is a dream. We're living in an external dream, but it's Lord Shiva's dream. It's God's dream.
Yes.
So the Lord of these three energies is Swatchand Bhairava. And this picture is very, very symbolic. Swatchand Bhairava has 5 heads or 5 mouths in which he manifests the knowledge of all the Shastras, the Vedas, the Agamas, the Tantras. He has 18 arms, and each of these arms has a weapon. And the weapons are also symbolic of what Swamiji said is the 5 organs of action, which are called the Karmendriyas, the 5 organs of knowledge, the Gyanendriyas, and also the 5 breaths, the 5 pranas, prana, apana, samana, udana, and vyana. We all have those. The last 3 relate to the Shaktis, which is the intellect. We all have an intellect to decide. We have an ego, which recognizes who I am. And we have a mind, which can help us function in the world. So those 18 arms and all of their weapons are just symbols of the 18 aspects of creation. And there are different depictions of Swatchand Bhairava. But in order for all of these things to flow into the world, the 3 avenues of the Aghora Shaktis are most important. And people can dive deep into this. They can go into this. But Swachandanatha appeared to Swamiji in this form in 1988. And it was very unusual because in Kashmir Shaiva philosophy, when Shiva appears in Kali Yuga, which we're all in Kali Yuga, he usually appears as Srikantanatha, with just a Trishul, the pictures that we see everywhere, or especially in India. As in the form of Swachandanatha, he usually only appears in Satyuga, because this embodiment is very refined, super refined. But for some reason, Swachandanatha appeared to Swamiji, and he told Swamiji, and we shared this last week when we had a talk, he told Swamiji, this is in 1988, that in a few decades to come, the world will be going through quite a bit of change. There'll be a lot more tamasha than people are used to.
Yes.
And there'll be upheavals, which he said even the rishis will be, from their other worlds looking down, will be going, wow, what is going on down there on Prithvi Bhuvana, on the earth? And he told Swamiji that the way that you have to share this Aghora mantra and another stotra which goes with it, called the Bahurupa Garbha stotra, with as many people as possible for their own peace of mind and to create peace in the environment.
जी.
And so I'll stop sharing my screen for a second. Or actually, I will just go to one more thing. This is a letter that Swamiji wrote shortly after he had that experience.
Wow, this is amazing to see his writing. Wow.
This is a handwritten letter on the 18th of June 1989. And he said he wrote it to John Hughes. You mentioned John Hughes in the beginning. And Swamiji went into a very deep state during this experience. He said the most intense level of grace descended upon him, and he was 76 or 77 years old at that time.
Mhm.
And he said, I was in receipt of your loving and devoted letter on the 3rd of April, 1989. He said, I had noted the contents therein, but many ups and downs took place. I was 100% unable to write, as I was almost dead. He had almost left his body.
Oh.
Astrologers had predicted that he would leave his body during that time. And he said, now I feel slightly better to write to you the word-by-word meaning of the Aghora mantra. And that was the mantra which I showed, Aghorebhyo, Tagorebhyo, Ghora Ghora, and it's Tari. In most others, it'll be Tare. In Kashmir, it's Tari, to emphasize that it's a feminine. He's talking about feminine shaktis, feminine energies.
Yes.
Sarvata Sharva Sarvebhyo Namaste Rudarupebhya. Then Swamiji says, before writing its meaning, I have to note down to you that this mantra is connected with the three great the three great energies, which are at the same time, you should note, these energies are Ananta, they are numberless. He says, Aghora energies, when darkness or ignorance is altogether vanished, they're named the Aghora energies. And he said, when these Aghora energies penetrate an individual, no matter if that individual is a yogi, an ordinary worldly person, at that very moment, even the slightest touch of Aghora energies, that person is born a new being. There and then, he becomes one with God consciousness. And he is no less than Swachandanata. This is called Tivra Shaktipata, supreme, intense grace. And at the end, Swamiji said, which was unusual, he said, you should publish it and spread this message all over the world.
Wow. Okay.
Now we weren't fully aware of the magnitude and the importance of this message. But from that day, Swamiji, every day in the ashram in 1989, right through till when he left this world in 91, every night we would recite the Aghora mantra and the Bahurupa stotra. And it's only in the last period of time that we've come to realize this is so important right now. And on our website, which you said, the Universal Shaiva Fellowship or the Lakshmanjoo Academy, we just did a four-week seminar. It's all free, 4-week webinar on this Bahurupa stotra. There are now 400 or 500 people all around the world reciting or just listening to this stotra. And many people are having amazing experiences. They're not Sanskritists. They're householders, and they're people who've been on the yoga path for some time. And the recitation of the mantras and this stotra, this hymn, creates that wave of peace in the environment. And Swachandanata said this had to be done at this time because the world it's the karma, it's everything, it's the collective karma of the planet. We can go into details and blame, this government, this person, that person, but ultimately, this is all the play of Shiva. And sometimes, especially in Kali Yuga, that play can get a little bit topsy-turvy.
The best thing which you also told me regarding this stotra is that you need not, Swami Lakshmanjoo Maharaj said to you that need not to understand the word meaning of or translation of it, and just listen to the recital of what it is. And I was listening yesterday, it was so beautiful that you just keep listening to it. It's the way he has chanted himself.
Yes, the recording is a little bit rough, but the fact that it is Swamiji with a handful of devotees reciting, you see, one of his closest disciples, let's put it this way, in Kashmir tradition for many centuries, it was incumbent on Kashmiri Pandits, the males of the family, to wake up in the morning, early morning, do their puja and recite two stotras. One is the Mahimna stotra to Lord Shiva, and the other was the Bahurupa stotra to Swatchand. And the last verse, for many of you will know, of Mahimna Padma, the last verse says, there is no deity greater than Lord Shiva, and there is no mantra greater than the Aghora mantra. That's the very last verse of Mahimna Padma, Mahimna Stotra. So it was traditional. And if I would visit or stay in the house of a Kashmiri Pandit, I would always hear in the morning, 3 a.m., 4 a.m., time was no barrier there, but they would like to do their recitation and puja during Brahm Muhurt.
Yes.
I would hear them doing that stotra even before I understood it. And one time, one devotee had a beautiful voice. Swamiji was staying in his house, and he asked Swamiji, we don't have a meaning of this. There are some translations, but they don't seem to do. Could you give us a translation? And Swamiji said, no, you don't need to translate this. He said, you can understand the initial introductory verses because they're about Swatchand Bhairava. They're a description of everything. But the actual Aghora mantra and the verses which come after the 10 recitations of the Aghora mantra, each letter of those following 34 verses is one letter from the Aghora mantra.
Wow.
And he said that you won't, if you got a literal meaning, he said, you would think that now I understand this, okay, I can put that aside. He said, it's not in the literal meaning. It's the meaning, the deepest meaning is in the vibration of this thing. So just listening and reciting without trying to become a scholar, he said, you will begin to understand the subtle meaning behind this. He said, because each verse, he said, you could write volumes on just each verse. So he said that don't go deep into that. Don't make yourself a scholar and think, oh yeah, okay, I know that. Now I can move on to my next book. And he would tell us, just listen over and over, and you will find that resonating with your own inner vibration. And from that, miracles happen. And we've seen it. We've seen so many different experiences that happen around the recitation of this stotra.
Thank you, George. We directly dived into the deep in the starting of our interview, but that's good. But I would like you to come towards little before when you met Swamiji. Before that, how little bit in brief, how your journey was, who your parents were, how you started, and how you went to spirituality, how it was.
Well, it's a very interesting question, and I get asked this question, and I can go on and talk about that in minute detail, but everybody comes to the spiritual path at exactly the moment that Shiva and Shakti wake up inside of them. Okay, I'm talking about Kashmir Shaivism. So, Shiva and Shakti, Bhairava and Bhairavi, they are the deities there. So when that happens for any individual, no matter where you are, it's grace. Something happens in your life that a space opens up for you to suddenly entertain a whole new paradigm. It happened to me at the age of 18 years old.
Wow.
I was in Australia. I lived in Sydney. I went surfing every weekend. I played guitar. I played soccer. My father was an international soccer player. I was in the world. I loved it. And then I met two people who were so different. They were so different. I couldn't pinpoint what was it about these two. There were two young girls, and they told me, you have to find yourself. And I said, I didn't know I was lost. How do I find myself? They said, well, the first thing you need to do is you need to start yoga. The second thing, you have to meditate. And the third thing is you must become a vegetarian. And I was a ferocious carnivore, and that's Australians, they like to eat meat. I didn't know anything, but I was so impressed with the purity of these two sisters. They were twin sisters who had been vegetarians since birth, had been doing yoga, and they were kind of born into meditation. So from that, I gravitated into learning transcendental meditation. That was what was available. Everybody heard about the Maharishi and the Beatles. And after I got initiated I got my mantra Diksha, I thought, this is really nice. And 2 years later, I became a teacher. I went to Switzerland, I met Maharishi, I became a teacher. And I taught.
Sorry to interrupt. How you felt when you met somebody like Maharishi? Because it's a time, I know I have seen him on television. I have seen him his speeches, but young generation want to like how Maharishi was and how in his presence you felt.
Yes, being in the presence of any kind of being that's more enlightened than your average person. We all meet people like that. We meet what we call blessed souls. But those souls that have been meditating and have achieved a very high level of consciousness, you feel a vibration, a tangible vibration that you can't quite grasp, you can't understand, you can't intellectualize what it is. But you feel in their presence, and you feel immediately you feel peaceful in your own heart. And I felt that around Maharishi. Whenever he would come into the room, everybody would automatically stand up. Irrespective of what you were doing, you just felt this thing. Your own pranas would subdued by his presence.
Wow.
And you would stand up. I was very fortunate because I met with Maharishi personally on a number of occasions. I spent 6 months working very close to him in Switzerland. And I just found his dedication to bringing, peace to the world was next to none. He was tireless. He hardly ever slept. He slept 1 or 2 hours a night, and the next day and the people that were close to him would always get burned out, and he would have to change his inner circle every so often.
Wow.
But I was interested in the Veda, and I was interested in all of Indian spiritual knowledge, we can say. And in 1974, he gave me some manuscripts to study, and one of them was the Shiva Sutras, just the sutras, and on top of it, it had composed by Bal Brahmachari Swami Lakshmanjoo, Gupta Ganga, Ishba, Kashmir. Mm-hmm. And I would read those over and over again, and I read them over for 8 years, and they were my favorite texts. We read the Yoga Vashishta, we read the 10 mandalas of Rig Veda, the Brahma Sutras, all of these, 6 systems of Indian philosophy we had to study. But the Shiva Sutras really created an incredible seed in my heart. In 1980, I met Maharishi in India, and I asked his permission, privately I asked his permission that I would like to go to Kashmir and study and go more deeply into the Shiva Sutras with Swami Lakshmanjoo. And normally he would not allow Westerners to go to India outside of being in his movement. But he said, okay, I'll give you permission. You can go after 1 year. So I taught again up to the end of 1980, 81, 82, and then I went to Kashmir, not knowing anything, not knowing whether I would be accepted, not really knowing what was the situation around Swamiji, but I went there, and Swamiji was actually away at that time. I was there for 1 month before he came back to Kashmir. It was winter. And everybody said, don't push Swamiji to become a disciple. Don't just come on the 1 day a week where he would meet people on a Sunday. Just come along, sit there. He'll give everybody a cup of tea. There might be 20 people, up to 100 people come every Sunday. In the afternoon, he provides everyone with a tea, beautiful Kashmiri tea, and just play it by ear, And I said, look, I didn't come here to expect anything. I just wanted to have darshan of the person whose sutras, or whose translation of the Shiva Sutras that I've been reading for many, many years. So the first day that I met Swamiji was a very muddy, cold winter day. We drank this tea, and Swamiji was there, maybe 20, 30 disciples sitting around in his beautiful garden. And after about an hour or so, it was quite cold, so people didn't stay very long. We were all left. And as you left, you walked past him near the door of his small house. He didn't have an ashram. It was his own house. That's the tradition in Kashmir.
Wow.
And as I went past, I stood in the street, and all the devotees were waiting for him to lock the door. And I thought myself, oh, maybe this is the last time I get to see him. Maybe I'll only get to see him on Sundays. We had exchanged a little bit of talk, and he locked the door, and I stood there. Everybody stood. They waited until the door was locked, and then the next thing it opened again, and he looked across and saw me. He said, "You will come again, won't you?" And I said, "Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I would feel privileged." I went back the next week, and that very week he asked me to come during the week, which I knew was a privilege. I'd heard, if he invites you. I went back, and he asked me all these stories. I had this illusion that when I go back, he's just going to, hit me on the head or something and enlighten me. I was so excited for that. And on the day that I was going back, it was a Tuesday, because he traditionally had Monday in silence. I didn't know what to expect. But when I got there, we sat in his little tea house, his little pavilion. And he asked me all about my life. Like you said, what about your education? What has happened up to you getting here? But I knew he already knew all that. When I told him I'm a civil engineer, he said, well, do you have hands-on experience? Do you know woodwork? Do you know bricklaying? Do you know plumbing? And I said, yeah, I know all of those things. I can actually do. He said, but can you do them with your own hands? He says, some engineers only have the theory.
Yep.
I can do them. And he said to me, good. He said, come tomorrow. I have so much work for you. And from that day, I spent the next 9 years every day in his ashram.
Wow.
6 days a week. 6 days a week I was there, working in the garden, pruning trees, demolishing his cow shed to build the Havanshalla, eventually demolishing his old satsang hall to build a 2-story satsang hall, because he said in the future more disciples will come, we need a bigger place. So, and when he wasn't satisfied that I was feeding myself properly, he said, what do you have to eat? I said, well, I make khichdi every day. It's very quick. I have a pressure cooker, khichdi, I wrap it in a blanket.
Yeah.
And I go, after three weeks, he said, no, khichdi is not enough. I want you to come and have lunch with me. So I was having breakfast and lunch. And I mean, to me, I was so blessed. And I forgot why I had gone there. I forgot my initial reason was to gain all this knowledge. But I wanted knowledge for the wrong reasons. I wanted knowledge for power. I wanted to be able to impress people with what I knew. And instead of that, Swamiji put me in working in his garden. I attended his lectures. Then in 1988, after I'd been there 6 years, he one day said, now I want you to transcribe all the recorded lectures that John Hughes has made. There were 750 hours of lectures that he'd made over like 20 years. And I had a background in Sanskrit. I'm not a Sanskritist, but I can read Devanagari fluently. So he said, you'll have to have the original text, because that's what I'm teaching from. You can write out the slokas, and then you just translate exactly what I've said. So I started, and from 1988 up until 2008, I spent the next 20 years initially writing, because I didn't have a computer.
Yeah.
And then eventually moving to my first Apple Macintosh somewhere in the mid-90s, and here on a laptop now. So 20 years it took me to transcribe everything that he had said in English. And with John Hughes, we decided that these lectures were so precious that we should release them as manuscripts of the original lectures, transcripts, rather than edit them and make books. Why not let the public today hear Swamiji's voice and listen to the original lectures? Listen to what he said. And that way we said, there may be people there in the world who get much more out of this than we do. We are just, we're manuscript followers. John says, I'm a recorder, I've recorded it. You've transcribed it, but we don't claim to be Mahatmas. We don't claim to be teachers. We're doing what Swamiji wanted. We're spreading his teaching of Kashmir Shaivism and making it available to all sincere seekers around the world. So that's my story of how I got to Kashmir and got to meet Swamiji and immediately got accepted into his. He didn't have an inner circle. Everybody, when anybody was in his presence, you felt like you were the number one disciple. He made you feel so full within yourself and complete. You felt he loves me the most.
Yes, you are the special one. But just like to understand more about Swami Lakshmanju Maharaj, how he was and how he was different from others. Like he was a different guru altogether, and he was very compassionate. Even in his today in astral world, when you connect with him, it's like a very different master, very loving master, still to give you whatever you want. Like you want to understanding of Trika Shastra, he gives you that. So I just like to understand how he was when he was in body and what specific things you have seen. Any examples or any instances in his life you can share. That will be great.
Okay, well, the best way to do that, because over the past 30 years, I've been invited to places to give talks, in Varanasi at Banaras Hindu University, presentation on Swamiji, in Jammu at the university there of Katra, at the University of Jammu. And what I do every time, because I can sit here and answer your question and talk for 100 years, I still would not do justice. So I'm going to share the screen and give your audience a direct understanding. There's a lady who used to go there. She had a yoga school in America. She was very simple and very, very naive, you could say, of the teachings of Shaivism. But Swamiji had her make these recordings, and the recordings are very rough. They're done on a Super 8 film. But Claudia, who's my partner, she's uploaded many of these onto the internet, and YouTube and on the Lakshmanjoo Academy. I want to share just a 4-minute clip. In that clip, you'll get more than I could explain,
Okay, that's great. If you can share with us.
I will do that, yes. And I'll go back again here. Okay, so this is just a short clip. He's being interviewed, and Claudia has put the subtitles in to help people with what's being said. Okay.
Shaivite philosophy, you're the greatest living authority in Shaivism. The yamas and niyamas are an important part of this philosophy.
These are important parts.
Very important. In the Shaivite philosophy, the final goal, could you tell me, is it union? What is the final goal of Shaivite?
Final goal of in Shaivite philosophy is when individual unites with universal consciousness.
With the universal consciousness. And that universal consciousness
is God.
Is it in use all the time, Swamiji? You just have to look for it?
No, universal consciousness you will find in each and every individual. But it is in the background. It is in the subsided state at this time. When you practice and meditate on some point explained by your master, then by and by this individuality vanishes in universality. And time comes when universal consciousness arises in one's own body. And he experiences that universal consciousness. And that is the state of God experience. But that experiencing that universal consciousness is not direct experience.
How do you even know when you're even approaching something like that, Swamiji? What are your signposts on the road?
Memory comes in you. Memory comes in you. Oh, I was universal consciousness already previously, and I didn't know it.
I see.
This is the sign of that experience.
Memory of past things.
You feel at the time of rising of that universal consciousness in you, you feel there is memory.
As if you've been there before. As if you have felt there before.
Yes.
Let's see.
Yes.
Swamiji, this super conscious state that you kind of recognize when it hits you, you think, oh, I felt this before. Then what happens? Then what are the signs for a man or a woman into yoga like that? What do they watch for? Where do they go from there?
They don't watch. They feel that consciousness, God consciousness, as the flood and fountains of excess of joy. Happiness. Not. It is super sexual joy.
A sexual happiness.
It is not individual sexual joy. It is super sexual joy. I say 100,000 million times more dense joy than that sexual joy.
And it continues a long time.
It continues long time, and it flows in each and every vein of your body. You are intoxicated with that bliss.
And you just feel it over hours and hours or days?
No, it remains only for 3 or 4 seconds, and the rest of life is intoxicated.
The rest of your life is affected by that.
If it remains, according to the theory of Abhinavagupta, if it remains for 1 hour, then this body won't exist.
You die.
Yes.
You die.
Yes.
You cannot sustain.
You cannot tolerate that intensity of joy in this limited body. You have to throw this, shatter this. One with the divine.
Like super sexual joy, it's just such a tremendous joy state. Do yogis go into this feeling when they die? Is this what death is to a yogi?
Yes.
That's why they don't fear it. They love it.
They love it.
They love death.
Love it.
So beautiful.
Oops, hold on. 1 minute. It went to another, it just went automatically to Swamiji reciting. He did a whole translation, a commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, Abhinavagupta's Bhagavad Gita, which is different to there's 4 different renderings of the Bhagavad Gita, and the northern one has followed Abhinavagupta's commentary. And Swamiji, it was the first book Swamiji ever published in his life in 1933. He published the Sanskrit edition.
Wow.
But that
sharing this, it's really, you can feel his presence, his eyes,
it's much more than I can describe. I never try to describe Swamiji because words don't do justice. I was at a conference once in, I think it was Jammu. There were 500-600 people in the audience, and you have scholars coming up, and everybody is just, after a while, students are there. They all get bored, and the 2 front rows are attentive, and the 5 rows at the back, they're all on their cell phones, texting or doing something, because. So whenever I'm asked to give a presentation on Swami Lakshmanjoo's teachings, I always make sure there's a big screen, like a movie theater screen. And at this one occasion, the screen was maybe 10 feet by 15 feet. It was huge. And I'd already organized the projector people, and they played this 4-minute clip. And I watched the audience from the dark part of the stage, and everybody was just mesmerized. And after that, many of the scholars came up and said, I've heard about Swami Lakshmanjoo for many years, but today I had darshan. Today I had his darshan. And that's how Swamiji would work, and even today, he's there for many, many people. Many people have experiences of him directing them towards Shaivism. They've never even heard about Shaivism, but they get a book or they get some impulse.
Yep.
And that's the philosophy. Continue.
Yeah. I came to know from Alam Prabhuji that I interviewed him also. So thanks to him that I got you here. But I just wanted to know that you have a good understanding of Kashmir history also. So the spiritual history of Kashmir, I wanted to understand the Kashyap Rishi's land, which became Kashmir today. What is this spiritual journey of this land is also, and how important Kashmir is, not only for Trika Shastra but also for spirituality.
Well, people ask that same question to Swamiji in his own words. He says, if you look at India, you'll see India is the shape of a heart, and Kashmir is like a head that sits on top. And of course, Kashmir is the seat. Well, it's now called POK, after 1947. But Kashmir was the seat of Sharda Peeth, which is Sharda Devi, and that is the seat of knowledge. In India there are three main Pithas. There's Kamakya in the center, there's Sharda Peeth on this side, and then there's Punagiri on the left. And they're the three Devis, basically, that overlook all of India. I mean, in those days, in the time of Bharat, there were no boundaries, There was just the land of Bharat. And of course, when Bharat had his sons, 8 sons, I think, and his daughter, but he had to bequeath who would look after what. He gave India to his daughter, Kanya Kumari,
Wow.
And his sons, who he must have known they were more materialistic, he gave all the others, Americas, Europe and all of that. They were in charge of that. So Swamiji has said that India still vibrates with the intense vibration of pure spirituality. And Kashmir is the seat of learning, so everything that has flown out has flown down from Kashmir. And Kashmir was once a lake, as you said. I'm not that conversant with the history, because Swamiji warned me. He said, don't become a historian, don't become a scholar. There's not enough time. He said, so many people, he said, Jesus made the Sermon on the Mount, and scholars want to go and measure how high the mountain was and what was the circumference. He said, what you should do is listen to the words. He says, and when you're listening, there's 2 kinds of people. He said, there are people who listen, and there are people who hear what's being said.
Yes.
He said, scholars listen, and they listen with their own agenda and comparison of everything they know with what's being said. He said, but they don't actually hear what's being said because their cup is already full. You have to empty your cup. You have to get rid of, in a sense of just become an innocent soul, and then you can learn something. You can absorb what's being said. The great scholar Jayadeva Singh, who published 4 books and studied all of them with Swamiji, he wrote everything. He said, whatever I've learned, I learned from Swamiji. He's the doyen of Shaiva Agama. In his Pratyabhijna, he said, I dedicate this book to Swamiji Lakshmanjoo, who unsealed my eyes. And at the end of his career, he came to Swamiji. He said, I want to study and I want to do an intense work on the Pratyabhijna, the Parachashika Vivarana, a very intense text based on the Sanskrit alphabet and the 2 alphabet goddesses, Matrika and Malini. And Swamiji said, you're a scholar, how would you like to study this? And Jayadeva Singh stood before Swamiji. He said, no, not as a scholar, as a small child. As an innocent small child, I would like to study this with you. And Swamiji said, then you will learn something.
Wow.
Yeah, so Swamiji was continually surrounded by scholars. And it was very interesting to see how he handled the different people. It was obvious from his level of consciousness, he would see people for what they were. But I remember one man came with his wife. He was a very well-known scholar in India. He had written a number of books on Vedanta and Bhakti. And he sat on the veranda with Swamiji and he said, Swamiji, I don't know much about Kashmir Shaivism, but my wife and I, we have now entered Grastha Ashrama. we're vanaprasth, and now we are giving up the world. Swamiji very kindly and compassionately said, well, he said, what? He said, it's good, you're giving up the world. He said, but at this age, the world has given you up. And the man laughed like that. He got it immediately. And Swamiji said, you see, in Kashmir Shaivism, because it's a grasta tradition, it's a householder tradition, we say that from the age of youth, or 20 to 21, that's when you should give those years from 20 to 40 to 50 to doing your spiritual practice. You do your work side by side, but you do your spiritual practice, you do your puja in the morning, and then in the latter years of your life, you carry that energy. It's not something that you postpone to the last stage, brahmachari, and then grasti, and then, Bahurupa. You see, we don't believe that in Kashmir Shaivism, he said, because it is a householder tradition. And a big part of Kashmir Shaivism is meditation in action. Not just to sit in your puja room, Swamiji said, and meditate for an hour or 2 hours and then come out and lose all of that. You should carry that vibration into the world, and there are techniques by which you can do that effectively.
Yes.
But again, the history lesson on Kashmir, I avoid it, I have to admit, because the knowledge that came out of Kashmir is far more penetrating for people. And if you look at the lineage, Swamiji recognized, and he considered himself to be part of the unbroken oral tradition, which started 5,000 years ago with Durvasa Rishi.
Yes.
And Durvasa Rishi, remember, was Krishna's guru in the previous yuga, in Dwapara Yuga. He was Krishna's guru, and he taught Krishna, Krama system and whatever. But at the beginning of Kali Yuga, Lord Shiva, in the form of Sri Kantanatha, appeared to Durvasa, and he said, you're going to be, I'm designating you as the custodian of Shaivism in all of its forms for the duration of Kali Yuga. That's 432,000 years. Okay, duration, human years.
Yes.
That was 5,000 years ago. He appeared on Mount Kailash. After that, he taught him immediately, he had the infinite memory. He taught him the Bhairava, or the monistic tantras, the Bhairava tantras. He taught him the Rudra tantras and the Shiva tantras. They were the three different schools of Shaivism, and philosophically speaking. And Durvasa looked around for worthwhile students to take this knowledge, and he couldn't find anybody. He said Kali Yuga was such a contrast that the great rishis hid themselves from the general public. They hid themselves in remote places. So he created 3 mind-born sons, Manasputra.
Yep.
And that was Trayambakanatha, Amardakanatha, and Srinatha. And each of those he gave the trust of carrying out these 3 traditions, the 3 core teachings of Shaivism. And Trayambakanatha, he also created 1 mind-born daughter, Ada Trayambaka, half of the son. And this went on for 15 generations. They were all mind-born putras. They were all siddhas, very elevated siddhas. And at the 15th generation, Swamiji said that mind-born son was not so introverted, and he couldn't create this mind-born son. So he married a Brahmin girl, and that was the start of the father-son lineage. He was Sangamaditya, and then his son was Vashaditya, and then Arunaditya. And then after that, there was, we have the knowledge of, around that time, those 3 was the Shiva Sutras were discovered on Shiva Rock, alag, side by side. And then you have the pure tradition of these Shaiva masters, starting with Ananda, Somananda, Utpaladeva, Abhinavagupta, and his great master, Shambhunatha, and his disciples, Khemraja and Yogaraja. That lineage is written down in the back of one book, the Shiva Drishti. And after that, not much is known for 500 years during the Mughal invasion of Kashmir or India, from 1300 right through to 1800. And then again after 1800, and Kashmir was liberated by the Dogra dynasty. This Ranbir Singh, Pratap Singh, that whole dynasty that came through. Then Kashmir Shaivism again started to flourish. So it's an unbroken tradition, even though it went underground. It still was there. And a very interesting event prior to Swamiji's birth was when Swami Vivekananda visited Kashmir in 1897. When he was there, he stayed on a houseboat which was owned by and built by Swamiji's father.
Wow.
He stayed on a houseboat, and he asked, were there any great Mahatmas that were worth visiting? And he used to go for walks on his own. There's a famous story when he went to Kirbhavani. That was a separate story. But Swamiji's family priest was Swami Ram. He was also the family priest, and he was the guru. He was Swamiji's grand master. So he went there, and then afterwards he went to Swamiji's house. He was invited to have lunch in Swamiji's house. And this is 10 years before Swamiji is born. And he had his meal, and as he sat there in Swamiji's house, he said, I have a very strong inner feeling that a great saint will be born into your dynasty. He told Swamiji's father, in the future, a great saint will be born into your household.
So Swami that. Wow.
Swami Vivekananda. And Swami Vivekananda went to Swami Ram's ashram, and when he entered that ashram, Swami Ram had his disciples recite Abhinavagupta's Bhairava stotra, 10 verses to Bhairava. And he did that because Swami Ram sensed that Vivekananda was a little bit depressed. Vivekananda was still reminiscing on his 1892 visit to the Parliament of Religions in Chicago. And afterwards, he had such an influence on the Western people. He was so charismatic. They had never seen anybody like Vivekananda. He lit up the whole audience. And all of these women came and flocked around him. Some of them even said, Swamiji said, this must be a story that Vivekananda might have passed on to Swamiji's father. Women were saying, I've fallen in love with you. And Vivekananda would say, you should not fall in love with me. You should rise in love with me.
Wow.
You should rise spiritually. And there were some very influential people that followed him back to India. They became nuns of the Ramakrishna mission. But there was some bad publicity too. So Swami Ram felt that. And Vivekananda went to Kirbhavani after that. He directed him. He said, go to Kirbhavani, the shrine, and just go there. He just directed him. When Vivekananda went there, it was in ruin from that 500 years of Mughal. They ruined many temples. And he was walking around and he thought to himself, I have such influence, I could rebuild this place. I could rebuild it and make it very nice. And then the goddess, Shakti Kirbhavani Ragna Devi, spoke to him and said, who are you? Who are you? I could build a 6-story golden temple here right now if I wanted to. She told Vivekananda, just go on with your own work. Go on with your own work. And he was so astounded after that. When he came back, he said, Shakti is alive. Shakti spoke with me. It was his first real experience of Mother Divine, the divinity. And from then on, his life changed. I think it was very shortly after he went to Amarnath. And after his experience in the Amarnath cave with the Shiva Lingam, he was so overwhelmed. And I think Ramakrishna prophesies that when he has this final experience like that, he won't stay in this world very long. I think it was a few months later that Swami Vivekananda left this world at not an old age, at a young age.
Yeah, before 40, I think. He was about to touch 40.
Yes.
So great history. This was a revelation that Swami Vivekananda predicted Lakshmanju Maharaj's Pradurbhav, as well as then Swami Ram asked him to go towards Kir Bhavani. This was never heard about. Thank you, George, for sharing
Not
this.
only that at the end of the recitation at Swami Ram's ashram, Vivekananda, at the end of the 10 verses, which are the 10 verses penned by Abhinavagupta, Swami Vivekananda spontaneously recited a verse,
Wow.
impromptu, because he was a great Sanskritist. And after that, Swami Ram also recited a Sanskrit verse. Those two verses, 11 and 12, are still to this day, for the last 120 years, recited by all Kashmiri Pandits. They do 10 verses of Abhinavagupta, and they add the verse by Vivekananda and the verse by, anyone that goes to India, to any of Swamiji's ashrams, every Sunday they have puja there, in Delhi, in Bombay, in Jammu, and in Kashmir. Every Sunday there's a regular recitation of all these ancient Kashmiri stotras, and they recite those two verses as extras.
Wow. This never heard about it. Thank you.
Yeah, most people don't know. Most people don't. People come from Ramakrishna Mission. What are those two verses? We say,
Yeah.
well, one of them is by Swami Vivekananda, and one of them is by Swami Rama. And I'll share my screen again just for a moment, because it's quite appropriate here, just so people understand who we're talking about here. Okay, this is a montage of Swamiji, and the one on Swamiji's right is Swami Ram, his grandmaster,
Mhm.
and on his left is Swami Mahatabkak, his immediate master.
Mhm.
And in this picture, Monta, is the Abhinavagupta, the great master, who Swamiji revered as the most illustrious master of Shaiva philosophy.
Yes.
Above are just different depictions of Swatchand Bhairava. The one which I showed before on the right, and then Bhairava and Bhairavi separated, painted by a French lady who studied with Swamiji for many years.
Mhm.
And then Swachanda Bhairava on the left side. So these are all depictions. And the Shiva Lingam is Swamiji's own Amriteshwara Shiva Lingam from his temple. And the small Ganesh, I asked Claudia to put Ganesh in there as the remover of obstacles. And that's from Swamiji's small temple outside of his main temple.
Wow.
So, and this picture of Swamiji, when he had it made in Delhi, he said that this is the picture that you should put on your puja table for your own puja. And around the world, Swamiji has thousands of devotees everywhere, but he's very hidden. He didn't like propagation in the wrong ways. He didn't like big banners and come and see this and that. But this picture's on the table of most of Swamiji's disciples.
It is the right time, because you showed the Bhairava's pictures. It is the right time to understand. See, we talk about Bhairava and Bhairavi, and we little bit understand, rather very little understanding about Bhairava. But it looks, they are coming from Aghora Tantra, but they are called Ghora Devatas. So that's where the problem is, that they are very people take it like their puja, because you are yourself rituals, about Shri Shastra. That's the reason I'm asking you that. In Karm Kand part, the ritualistic part, you have mastered it. So I want to understand that why in that tradition of Tantra, where people are telling that it's dangerous to worship Bhairav, or you cannot do any mistake in your ritualistic part, otherwise things will go wrong. It is a Ghor Devta. So I just wanted to know about that part of Bhairav.
Yes, well, Ghora, yes, Ghora means frightening. Obviously, it's the very meaning of the word. But Swamiji says you have to understand it in the spiritual context, and that is that yes, the Ghora energies are frightening for people who are very attached to the material world, because they'll shake you up. you see there's a temple in India where many, many people go up in Kashmir. It's called Jeshta Devi temple. And there are three Devis, supreme Devis, which are directly the essence of the Aghora Shaktis. That's Jeshta, Raudri, and Vama. Okay, so Jeshta Shrine, she relates to Aghora Shakti. And Swamiji, devotees would come and say, Swamiji, we're really excited. We're going to go to Jeshta Devi Shrine. And he said, be very careful. They said, why should we be careful? She's a benign goddess. She said, yes, but she'll shake up your world so much you won't be able to put your feet on the ground. She'll throw you into such a state of consciousness that you'll lose interest in your family, and you'll lose interest in this for a time being. He said, not forever. But the transition between the descent of very powerful Shaktipat, he said, take it easy. Just do everything that you can. Offer some money at the temple. I remember he used to say, offer money if they have a donation box. He said, never put money on a Shiva Lingam. Yes. He said, you don't have to. Shiva owns the universe. He doesn't need any money, but Shakti does, because she has to decorate the whole universe. So he would say, donate at a Shakti temple, never leave without some donation. In a Shiva temple, put money in the donation box. He said, but never put money on the Shiva Lingam. This was his Kashmiri tradition. So he would say, Aghora, the Aghora energies, which are your uplifting energies, they're frightful for the objective world. And they're benign for consciousness. They're benign to push you into samadhi, into your deeper states. The Aghorataari Shaktis, they're frightful for consciousness because they push you into the world. Mm. So this Ghora word can be taken in different ways. The Aghora Shaktis, in Shaiva philosophy, it works both ways. This Ghora energy, or frightful energy, or Ghora energy, supremely frightful, which is what everybody says, because wherever you go, if you go to a Kala Bhairava temple, it's frightening. Kala Bhairava, the Lord, Lord of death. But it's death of your limitation. It's death of the limited individual, limited ego, where you see the whole world as different from yourself. And that's why Swamiji was very, very very concerned that people understood that these Aghora energies are feminine energies and motherly energies. To your other question about recitation, and that it has to be perfect, don't make a mistake, otherwise Bhairava or Kali will come and cut your head off with her sword, Yeah. Swamiji said, do you think a mother, if she has a child who has a slight lisp and can't pronounce words properly, does she love the other children more than that child? He said, when somebody recites mantra or does puja with devotion, how can God punish them if they make a mistake? He said, it's not possible. But if they're conscious of that, and they said, this is a transition that a lot of people go through. But the real bhaktas, they're not concerned about the fine subtleties of grammar and vyakaran and all of this and the pronunciations. They know if their devotion to the Divine Mother is pure, she's like that. Ramakrishna is the perfect example. When the statue fell in the temple and the arm broke off, one statue, and when the people came to see, they had a big meeting with all the board of directors of that with the Rani and everything. They said, the statue's there, we don't know what to do. Should we throw it in the Ganga? Should we do this? Should we do that? Should we get another one made and that? And they went back to the temple to inspect, and Ramakrishna had put it on, and he put a Band-Aid on the arm. He just put it back together like that. And when they asked him, what have you done? We were thinking of throwing this into the Ganges and get a new one. And he said, would you do that with your child? If he had a broken arm, would you throw him away and get another one? You see, this is the difference between real bhaktas and scholars and intellectuals. And as much as Swamiji appreciated those scholars who came around him, but he said to find this combination of scholar and bhakta is really unique. And the best example of that in Kashmir Shaivism was Utpaladeva. Utpaladeva was the disciple of Somananda. Utpaladeva spent the major part of his life writing these incredibly deep philosophical texts, the Pratyabhijna, Ishvara Pratyabhijna, Vimarshini, Ishvara Pratyabhijna, the theory of recognition, spontaneous recognition. And at the end of his life, it's almost as if he threw it all up in the air. He was a master of Sanskrit. And he went in a boat with his disciples, and they rowed the boat while he was in ecstasy, and he was singing these hymns. And they were penning down these hymns. They were just writing down whatever he was singing. And this eventually became a very great devotional text called the Shiva Stotrabali, the stotras to Shiva. And they were all purely devotion. And he threw all intellectual understanding to the wind. He said, because in intellectual understanding, there's always something more to know. There's always something more that you need to know. He said, when there's love of God, what else can you know?
True.
When you love God intensely in your heart, what more do you need? You know? And he said, this is when grace descends on any individual, they feel that love spontaneously in their heart. And somebody said to Swami, so what's the sign of that? How do you know you have that? He said, when you recite or you do your puja, tears come to your eyes. Or when you see a mother embracing a small child and you feel the love and devotion, tears come to your eyes. Or when you see one of your fellow devotees go to your guru, whoever your guru is, and you see them bowing down with reverence or in front of Ganesh, and that bowing moves you to where you have tears. He said, this is real devotion.
Wow.
Not that you try to tell somebody, bow this way or bow that. Don't do like that. Come over here. Don't touch that. The devotion of that person, innocent, sincere devotion, when you see that and it brings tears to your eyes and your heart expands, that's when you're getting the message of real devotion.
Beautiful. So, for the benefit of people, just wanted to ask you, so how a person, only in devotion, a person should go into this Bhairavi and Bhairav temple to avoid, like somebody wants spiritual gain, somebody wants materialistic gains. So how they should approach these temples?
With innocence. Usually when we have a problem, we have an idea of what the solution is, and we go to whoever it is. We go to God, or we go to Ganesh. He's Viganesha. He's the remover of obstacles. We go to Hanuman, and we ask for them to help us with an agenda that this is the result that I want. If you ask innocently and say, just I'm putting my problem before you, you know the solution, then you'll see it happens very quickly, that you get some grace. But if you have an underlying internal agenda, which the gods and goddesses know everything about us because they live within us. They're not outside there. They're not outside of us. They're within us, and that's a very big part of Kashmir Shaivism. Abhinavagupta has written a beautiful hymn. He used to summarize the most intense, the most deep philosophical texts. And for his simple devotees, he said he would write hymns, stotras. The Dehasta Devata Chakra Stotra is one where he says that all the gods and goddesses live inside your body. They're not out there. So when you're offering to Ganesh, when you're offering to Hanuman, when you're offering to Parvati and Shiva, you should understand that the very act of offering is the same as the external puja. Internal puja is going on at the same time. You're offering the lotus of your heart. You're offering the flower of your heart. You're offering a lota of water on the Shiva Lingam. That's knowledge. All of these things are symbolic of what's going on inside each of us. And Swamiji would say, when you eat food, you should sit first and just quietly contemplate what you're about to eat, how it got to your plate, and then go on eating and offer it to God.
Wow.
The famous verse of Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, verse 24. Every pundit knows that. Brahmarpanam Brahmahavir. Brahmagnau Brahmanahutam. Brahmaiva tena gantavyam, Brahma karma samadhina. You're asking there that everything, the food is God, the offering is God, the fire in my belly is also God, Brahma, it's Shakti really. And then the outcome of all of that will be I'll have good digestion and my energies will rise up.
Yes. Wow. Beautiful. That's beautiful. Um, George, I would like to understand, like, if Trika Shastra is older than Vedic tradition, and what is the relationship between the two?
Well, I mean, you can't really put a time limit on these things because Trika Shastra, which is the discussion between, say, Bhairava and Bhairavi. And Swami said certain Shastras have it that, they met on Mount Kailash, and Nandi was there, and there are so many different rishis around, and they overheard this, like Sanat Kumara overheard this, and he wrote this. But Swami said that these traditions are timeless because Shiva and Shakti, as in Kashmir Shaivism, are represented in all the temples as Shiva Lingam and Yoni. Shiva's not depicted in a iconic form other than the Shiva Lingam and the Yoni. So, but this is a symbol of creation, how creation started, not only in the creation of the universe, but in the creation of individual limited beings. Everybody that's here listening, yourself, myself, we all came from the union of our parents. Nobody could escape that unless you were Durvasa Rishi and you could create mind-born children.
Yes.
That's a separate, category. So this whole idea, of what is the source of this, and what are the source of all these shastras? Swamiji said the shastras, the agamas and the tantras and the Vedas are timeless. You can't really put a date on that because they say that the Vedas, for instance, they're recorded in the Akasha. They're eternally going on in the Akashic record, so in which is the whole source of Shabda. And all of these texts are timeless, not only in their origin, but in their meaning and what they convey to creation. Now scientists, these quantum physicists, are all looking at the Sanskrit alphabet and saying this is the theory, this is the explanation of string theory, this is the explanation of quantum entanglement. The first entanglement is Shiva and Shakti.
Yes.
And from that came out all of creation. What interested me about Kashmir Shaivism, as soon as I heard, because I studied Sankhya, and Sankhya has 25 tattvas, 25 elements which make up creation. And then when I went to Kashmir Shaivism, when I read the first books of Shiva Sutras, I said, wow, they've got 36 tattvas. There's an extra 11 tattvas, more subtle than the 25th Purusha tattva. I thought, so these rishis must be looking at creation through a electromagnet, magnifying glass, or, So I thought, wow, this is really interesting. And when I heard Abhinavagupta through his third chapter of Tantra Loka, which we've published that through the Lakshmanjoo Academy, there's 100 verses just on the Sanskrit alphabet and how the 16 vowels unfold and how the 34 consonants actually make up the building blocks of creation. Because everything is based on sound. Everything is based on paravak, you call it, the supreme sound. And that comes out, and it comes out in the form of letters, which become words, which become sentences. Doesn't matter which language. Every language is based on sound. So as soon as you have that, what you have immediately is, and very what we common with is nama rupa. You have names and forms. The universe is filled with names and forms. The forms are created by Shakti, and the names are also given by Shakti. So this is why in Kashmir Shaivism there's two alphabet goddesses. There's the standard alphabet, which is A, E, or A, B, C, D. And there's another alphabet called Matrika, Matri, the mother, who is unknown. And then there's another alphabet called Malini. And Malini is where the vowels and the consonants are all mixed together. And these two goddesses, in the dance of creation, create everything we can see around us. And they're functioning inside of us all the time. I'm speaking words and letters and sentences, and everybody's hearing according to their own capacity. And this is the play of sound, the play of Devanagari, the language of the gods.
Yes.
That is the rich heritage of Indian philosophy. Every day, I realize that, and Swamiji said, this is what you must do. No matter how much you realize, and no matter how much you think you know, you should feel every day you're just scratching the surface.
Yes.
Because knowledge is infinite. It's infinite.
And its Matrika chantings are so powerful. One of my Guru Bandhus, he was listening to it, just listening to it, and suddenly the Kundalini raised for him.
Yes, this happens to people. They might listen to a stotra that they've been reciting for many, many years, and all of a sudden something vibrates within them that opens up a whole new area of their own heart and their own reality, and they go, oh, wow, I understand that, And there are so many mantras which people, they recite by rote, and then all of a sudden these different meanings come out, more deeper and deeper meanings. Kapura Goram mantra, which is, everybody's familiar with, the Arti mantra, that is such multi-level layers of meaning in it. And for me, I still when I recite that mantra, every time there's some other little flavor of something that shows a deeper and deeper understanding, which expands out to become more universal.
Would you like to share a little bit?
Well, yeah, the standard meaning, there's different ways that the Kashmiri Pandits would recite. And somebody asked Swamiji, which is the best meter to recite? He said, whichever one brings tears to your eyes.
Wow.
And the Kashmiris, they knew the value, they knew the power of these letters of the Sanskrit alphabet. So standardly, people will recite, Karpura Goram Karunavataram Sansara Saram Bhujagendraram Sadara Vasantam Hridayaraminde Bhavam Bhavani Saitam Namami. That's a standard one you can hear in most temples.
Yes.
In Kashmir, to create a deeper vibration and push you inside, they do it in a different meter. They'll say Karpur Garam Karunavataram, like in a Samaveda style, because you can only elongate vowels. You can't elongate consonants. And the vowels are Shiva. They're Shiva, full of Shakti, and the consonants are Shakti, which is the building blocks of the universe. So, the meaning of this matter, Kapura Goram, Shiva is pure like camphor. Karunavataram, he's the embodiment, he's the avatar of Karuna, of compassion. Kapura Goram Karunavataram. Samsara Saram Bhujagendra Haram. He's the samsara, he's the samsara saram. And this Bhujagendra Haram, we know Shiva always has serpents around him.
Yeah.
And these serpents. But what does it mean? In Kashmir Shaivism, it means, and this is Trika philosophy again, in the base, this is pointed out in many of the texts of Kashmir Shaivism, in the base of Muladhara Chakra, there is a serpent that's coiled 3.5 times. And that serpent is goddess Kundalini, and she's asleep in most people. And when that goddess wakes up, due to intense grace, intense devotion, it rises as Kundalini. And Swamiji said it in that small clip. Intense sexual joy. What he meant, he used that analogy to show people that that normal sexuality is nothing compared to, it's 1/1000th a part of that super rise of that joy, and it flows in every cell of your body. So, Bhujanga, so, and then Sada Vasantam, Hridayara Vinde, Sada Vasanta or Sada Ramantam, Hridayara Vinde, ever dwelling, they're always in my heart, Bhavam Bhavani, Shiva and Shakti, Sahitam Namami. So the meaning of that verse is, as you see, Shiva is that compassion incarnate. He's pure as a mountain of silver, a mountain of, and then and he's placed himself through his Shakti in the Muladhara chakra of every living being. But at the same time, he resides eternally in the heart of all living beings as this union of Shiva and Shakti. And that's that verse, when we do it with the arti, we do it with our thing, what we're doing is we're actually enlivening what's going on already inside each and every one of us.
Magnificent, George. This is the explanation I've never heard. Thank you. My viewers also will be delighted. I'm delighted.
Well, this is not my understanding. This is what I've learned from Swamiji. Everything I'm telling you, I'm parroting what Swamiji has said and what I've heard by listening to his lectures for 20 years non-stop, and then going back and listening again. And even to today, continually, every spare moment that I've got, I'm putting together these webinars that we do every week. Every Saturday, there's a free webinar on the Lakshmanjoo Academy website. Right now, we're still doing the Shiva Sutras. And that's in, I don't know, Australia, it's quite probably a different time. It's 8 a.m. every Saturday morning in the US. It's 8:30 in the evening in India, 8:45 where I am here in Nepal, and in Australia it's probably 2 or 3 a.m.
Yes, it will be night time.
Yeah. But the replays are always there too. And ever since COVID started, we have been doing this every week, so 4.5 years. And if somebody registers on the website for that, they get access to all 4.5 years of these weekly sanghas that we've done. We've done the Bhagavad Gita, Abhinavagupta's Bhagavad Gita. We did the whole of Utpaladeva's Shiva Stotravali, and we're almost finished. We're in the last chapter of the Shiva Sutras.
Yeah.
And we have about 100, 120, 130 people online, and another 100, 200 people all around the world listen to the replay. But recently we shared this Aghora mantra in detail and the Bahurupa stotra over 4 seminars or 4 weekends, and that's been put together. This stotra, Swamiji said, and Swatchand said, this must never be used for commercial value. It must always be given freely.
Mm-hmm.
And even at the end of it, there are restrictions. Don't give like in all of the Vedic, don't share this with anyone that's not in your lineage, not a member of your guru, who hasn't studied the Shastras. But Swachandanatha told Swamiji to share this with everybody.
Yes.
Because he knew a time would come where there'd be shake-ups in the world. Look what's happening. We all have this awareness of what's going on around us and the uncertainty.
Yes.
But Swachanda Bhairava, Swachandanatha, and the Aghora Shaktis are part and parcel of what's happening.
Yeah. So, how to the Trika Shastra, which you have just explained so beautifully, for modern times, for the relevance apart from the stotras, what is the relevance? How, like for the householder spirituality wise, how relevant it is? How people should approach it? The Trika Shastra. Any books you can like to? You have given so many good videos, which we can share the links.
Yes. Well, there are many links there. I have to say at the outset, Kashmir Shaivism is not an easy subject just to dive straight into. But for those who have that idea of understanding, Kashmir Shaivism in a deeper sense, the first book that Swami Lakshmanjoo did in English was Kashmir Shaivism, The Secret Supreme.
Yes.
And That had 19 chapters, and that book was basically a condensed version of Abhinavagupta's complete Tantra Loka. The Tantra Loka was 37 chapters written by Abhinavagupta more than 1,200 years ago or 1,000 years ago. And there are texts like the Shiva Stotravali, which is also available, and also Swamiji's explanation of the Bhagavad Gita, which fortunately we have on video. And that was the first one that we did. I think it took a year and a half to do that each Saturday. And that's also because people are familiar with Bhagavad Gita and they understand the flow of that according to, whatever tradition they've read, Shankara's explanations. That Kashmir Shaivism is quite a unique explanation of that text. Abhinavagupta's commentary is quite unique, quite different in many places. So all of that material is there. I think people generally, they find the niche that suits them. Some people come and say, oh, this is really way too difficult for me. I don't know Sanskrit, I don't know that. So we say, okay, listen to Bhagavad Gita. That's the easiest introduction. Or do puja, and we have a Sunday puja also, which people are invited to, which are verses that Swamiji gave to all of his disciples. He said, whenever you want to sit and do a puja, you can do this. You can do your own puja. You can do your Hanuman Chalis. You can do Ganesh Stavaraja. All of these mantras, whatever resonates with you, is what has attracted you, and that's part of your nature. That's part of your Prakriti.
Yes.
Some people, they are fully devoted to Ganesh, some to Hanuman, some to Kali, some to Durga, and that's part of your nature, that you will find that resonates with you.
Yeah, true. So I will like to understand one more thing about Trika Shastra, because without talking about little bit about Abhinav Gupta, who he was and how the brilliant or like genius he was, this cannot be completed. This whole thing cannot be completed without talking about him also. And you have read it, heard it directly from Swamiji. So I will like to understand how you look at him and what Swamiji used to look at him as.
Yes, yeah. In fact, Abhinavagupta, naturally, he was a genius in his own right, and it's interesting that modern scholars have always depicted him to have lived a very short life, like 70 years, and they've always praised. They've said he did so much work in such a short period of time. But Swamiji had numerous darshans of Abhinavagupta throughout his life. In fact, the last darshan that he shared with us was in 1988. Abhinavagupta appeared to him shortly before he had this experience a year later of Swachandanatha. Throughout Swamiji's life, he had visions and experiences of all the great masters. The picture you have behind you of Babaji Avatar. Swamiji had his darshan when he was 17 years old, when he went to the forest in Kashmir, and he said, all the masters came to guide me at that time in my meditation. He ran away from home. He went to the forest because there's a very famous sacred place called Sadhu Ganga, in Kashmir, where saints for many, many, thousands of years had gone to do their real solid meditation. And Swamiji said, I was attracted by the vibrations there. He said, and when I was there, he said, saints and ancient rishis in disguise came and guided me in my meditation. And somebody turned up many years later. He had his master was a disciple of Babaji, and he was also a Kashmiri. And he turned up to the ashram one time. He's written about this in his book, I think. And he said his master had told him, before you leave this world, you have to go and have darshan of Swami Lakshmanjoo. And when he got to the ashram, it was a Sunday. There were many, many people there. And Swamiji was milling around with that. And he thought to himself, oh, I don't think I'll even get to meet him. There are so many important people here, and I'm a newcomer. The moment he had this thought, Swamiji came over, took him by the hand. He said, "Come with me." And he took him into his little meeting room in the satsang hall. And he said, "Now sit down." He said, "I've been waiting for you. Do you believe me?" And he said, "Swamiji, I'm confused." He said, "Do you believe, this guy was from South India." He said, "Are you a doubting Thomas? You doubt that I've been waiting for you?" Master. And Swamiji said, "My master told me you would come. Here." Swamiji reached into his pocket. He had a big black Rudraksha bead. He handed it to him. He said, "Here, your master gave me this when I was in my 20s. He said, "I hold your master and Babaji and the lineage of Kriya Yoga in the highest esteem." That's all Swamiji said. And then he said, "And your practice of Kriya Yoga, I want to refine something for you." So, Swamiji was of that caliber that he really had a blessed life, as Swami Ram, his own master, pointed out. Swami Ram predicted Swamiji's birth. In fact, Swamiji's parents went to Swami Ram before Swamiji was born because their eldest son had passed away. They had one other son, a younger son, and they said to Swami Ram that, we would like to have another son. And Swami Ram said, he sat for a moment, he said, "Come back on Monday, and I'll think about it." They came back on Monday. He reached in his pocket. He took 3 almonds from his pocket. He gave it to Swamiji's mother. He said, "Here, eat these now before me, and you will not only will you have a son, he'll be a shining light in the lineage of Kashmir Shaivism." And 10 months later, Swamiji was born.
Wow.
So Swamiji's had that blessing of these saints, and he spoke very, very highly of the Kriya Yoga tradition.
So he was just because a little bit of disturbance was there when you said that Swamiji took this person into his private chambers, a person coming from the south, and then
Yes.
he was talking to him that you doubting me that I was waiting for you, and then he gave him that because his master gave Rudraksh to him, and that
Yes.
master was in the lineage of Sri Maftar Babaji.
Yes, and that master said, "I want you to keep this. One day my disciple will come, and you have to hand it to him to show that you have understood our tradition." He said, "One day my disciple will come, and you have to give him this Rudraksha. It'll be proof because he knows my disciple will know." This disciple wasn't even born yet.
Wow.
Wasn't even born yet. But this is the way of these masters. They don't live in the same time frame that we live. We live in past, present, and future. They live only in the present moment. And we think that means somebody who's the past and the future have just disappeared. No, they live in an eternal moment. It's just one flow of God consciousness reverberating, and therefore nothing is hidden to them. Nothing is out of the way to them.
So when Abhinav Gupta came to Lakshmanju Maharaj, how he knew that he lived for longer time, is it?
The same lady that was on that clip, she asked Swamiji one time, "Swamiji, they say Abhinav Gupta did so much work in such a short lifetime that he was only 60 or 70. Swamiji said, no. He lived to the age of 96. And he said he was fully healthy and hale by his yoga and his practice. He had no disease. So he was 96 years old when he left this world. And I've gone through the chronological sequence. You see, there's only 3 books that Abhinav Gupta actually put the date of the times that he wrote those books, Mm-hmm. And in those 3 dates, if you put it together, you find that it shows that he must have been born sometime around 926 or 924, sorry, and he left this world in 1020. So that's the leaving this world is there, and there's a lot of mythologies around that too. They say when he left this world, he was reciting that Bhairava stotra, the one that Vivekananda put 2 verses on, or 1 verse, and Swami Ram. with 1,200 disciples, and he went into a cave, the Beru cave in Kashmir, and then they disappeared. But Swamiji said, no, this is, there's no indication that in Abhinavagupta's time that he had 1,200 disciples. He names most of his intimate disciples, and he just had a handful. But his job was to just give a very clear understanding of the Shastras and make it available for as many people as possible. Abhinavagupta was very much concerned with not just for the intellectual audience, but for real bhaktas and for real people that just had very simple understanding. And he did that by way of writing these hymns and stotras and condensed booklets like that.
So Abhinav Gupta also had the understanding of Natya Shastra as well as Veena, as well as mathematics. That's what people tell. This is correct?
Absolutely. You see, in Kashmir Shaivism, there's actually 27 different levels of grace that have been pointed out in Tantra Loka by Abhinavagupta, 27 different levels. It's chapter 13 of Tantra Loka. And Swamiji has condensed it to make it more understandable, just to 9 levels. And the first level is what's called Tivra Shaktipada. The most intense Tivra of Shaktipada is just grace, the descent of Shakti. And Swamiji, and someone once asked Swamiji, but why isn't there Shiva Pada? He said, no, Shiva has nowhere to go. Shiva is everywhere. How can he grace you to go up or down? He's already in you and you're everywhere. It's only through Shakti that he can descend into the world. It's only through Shakti that he can lift himself up, which is you and I, back to a higher level. So it's called Shakti Pada, the touch of Shakti. Yes. He said there's no Shiva Pada. So in that sense, 9 levels, and the second level is called Tivra Madhya Shakti Pada. And Swamiji said Abhinavagupta had this level of grace, and the outcome of that is written that master gets the experience of what's called Rudra Shakti Samavesha. The Avesha, the immersion in the state of Rudra Shakti, of Shiva's Shakti. And there are 5 signs that are obvious in that person who's had that grace: his intense love of Shiva, his understanding of all different disciplines, not just the one that he's in, but he has complete knowledge of all different Shastras, Vedic, Tantric, Agamic. He becomes he has a infinite energy to achieve whatever he wants to achieve immediately. There's no, he doesn't have any time lag between his Icha and his Kriya, his desire and the action. It happens immediately. And also he has this feeling of great poetry. He can understand the Shastras, and he can also, his words flow like poetry. And that's why Abhinavagupta, he also wrote a commentary on the Natya Shastra, as you just mentioned out, the Dwana Lochana of Harit Bhatra. I think, I'm sorry my pronunciation of that. I never went into that side of rasa theory, but Abhinavagupta went deeply into that.
Wow. If you like to share a little bit of your time when you got your Shaktipat, then by...
Well, I think my Shaktipada happened a long time before I met Swamiji, because I see everything just as a continuum of that. My Shaktipada started when I met these people in Australia, these 2 twin sisters who, to me, were... I don't know, I didn't have the right words then, but I realized they were divine beings. They were just really, there was something so special about them. And they guided me and pushed me onto the course of meditation and yoga. And from that, it was a continual process of this, going this way, that way, and eventually ending up at Swamiji's feet. And people have asked Swamiji that question, Swamiji, how do I know that I've been graced by Shaktipat? How do I know that I've been graced by God? He said, you wouldn't be here if you hadn't.
Yes.
He said, this is a clear sign that, you would be here. And I went there. I mentioned at the beginning of this, I went there, I think, for the wrong reasons. I wanted to have all this knowledge, and I wanted to have this. I wanted people to think, oh, he's a great guy, he knows so much and everything like that. And I never got a chance. Somebody threw me into the garden, okay? He threw me into hands-on work until I forgot all of that. And I think when my heart was ready, when I stopped asking questions in my own mind, then he said, now it's time for you to study. Before that, I didn't get much chance. I meditated. I did all the meditations that he taught. And we've also done, Swamiji asked us to share as much of his knowledge with everybody. And we've done courses on meditation in Kashmir Shaivism. What's the basic principle meditation that they do, which Swamiji also gave us out, towards the end of his life. And there are so many courses on our website. And also remember, there is an ashram here in India too. It's called Ishwar Ashram Trust. And they have regular functions for all of the devotees. Twice a year we have a main function, which is Swamiji's birthday celebration, his lunar birthday, and his Shraddha. And it was very interesting because every year that I was there, one of the most enjoyable was to prepare everything for Swamiji's master's, Mahasamadhi Havan. Because his master left this world in February, around February. So we would do a Havan then in the winter, and then during Pitra Paksh, everybody knows Pitra Paksh, that fortnight of ancestors, we would do Swamiji's or his master's, and then we would do eventually his grandmaster. So his master was the second Tirthi, second lunar day of Dvitiya of Pitra Paksh. So we were doing this all these years. It was such a big preparation, sometimes months of preparation, and the Havan would go for the whole day. It was a wonderful event. Hundreds of people would come, especially for the summer one. And one day I remember in the car driving Swamiji, back, we were getting all this samagri ready for the Havan. And he just casually said, don't worry, I'll make it easy for you when I leave this world. I didn't know what that meant. He said, I'll make it easy for you, don't worry. So it so happened that Swamiji left his body on the fourth Tirthi, the fourth day of Pitra Paksh. So we only had one Havan to do each year.
Wow.
If it was a week before, we would have two Havans. And so it was the fourth day on Chaturthi, and therefore he just said, I'll make it easy for you. I didn't know what that meant. But he really made it easy because we only had to do the preparation for one particular Havan.
Wow, what a compassionate master, beautiful. I know you have to leave, but I will like to have just a small, short answers, whatever you feel like giving in a sentence or something. Questions are actually big, but answers can be very small as per your understanding. So short answer questions are like, in your understanding, what is life?
Life. That's a very good question because now, most people think that life, especially in the spiritual path, is a process of us as human beings trying to realize something which seems untangible. Human beings trying to have an experience of consciousness, okay? Trying to have an experience of the bigger picture. Whether you're a Christian, whether whatever you are, whatever denomination or caste, creed or color, everybody has a question. And I feel like I'm a limited individual trying to have a conscious experience of something greater than myself. Kashmir Shaivism turns that around and says, actually, what we really are is we're consciousness, Shiva and Shakti, having a human experience. So consciousness transcends and comes down into each and every one of us. Shiva and Shakti, from that Kapura Goram mantra, Bhavam Bhavani Sahitam Namami, are always dwelling in the hearts of all limited beings. So we are those beings having this experience of consciousness. Consciousness is flowing through us in the world and through everybody, even the most ignorant person. It doesn't matter. It's a beautiful thing about Shaivism. If you believe that Shiva has manifested in the hearts and minds of all beings, then there's no conflict and there's no criticism. Very difficult to do today because we can have so much criticism for what everybody's doing wrong. Oh, Australian government doing this, Indian government doing this, US government doing this. There's so many things that look wrong, but in the big picture, it's just a process of time, a process of change.
Yeah. Thank you. Beautiful. Shiva and Shakti is the life. Yes, that's correct. So what is enlightenment for you?
Enlightenment means realizing your own true nature, your own inner nature. It's not something that is outside of you. To realize the full dignity, like Swamiji said in that little video clip, that consciousness, this state of God, is always in the background. You can't survive without it. It's always there in the background of everybody. And through meditation, whatever meditation you do, whatever puja, whatever spiritual practice, whatever you study, in the way of your spiritual path, is an attempt to open up that and have a taste of that within yourself. And in the end, he said, what you realize is you always were that. He said it's very unusual. The first experience that comes from a yogi or a yogini, when they realize the state of jivan mukta or moksha or liberation, is it was always there. It was never absent. I just was not focusing on that. I was looking into the world, and that consciousness was always expressing itself through my eyes, through my words. But I was living in a world of differentiation. I was dividing everything up. And in fact, it wasn't divided up at all. It was always the fabric of consciousness was permeating everything. My life, my children, my wife, my whole existence. Not just this life, but every other janma that I might have ever had. And remember, we're supposed to have 8.4 million janmas in one cycle.
Yes.
So, and I once asked Swamiji, what about Purva Janma? What about past, past lives and everything? And he said, George, you can dive down that rabbit hole. You can try to find out who you were in another life and go to astrologers, go to Bhrigu Sanktas, and they'll tell you this and that. He said, but the reality, the way to look at it is there's only Shiva and Shakti manifesting in the hearts and minds of all living beings. And for Shiva and Shakti, there's no Purva and there's no past. There's no past life, there's no future life. There's just this one flow of consciousness flowing in the hearts and minds of all living beings. He said, look at it that way and see the divinity in every person that comes before you. He said, especially children.
Beautiful. For you, who was in your senses, in your understanding, who was Lakshmanju Maharaj? Swami Lakshmanju Maharaj was.
I think he was the full embodiment, the embodiment of a fully enlightened being. I think he had reached a state of universal consciousness. And he was very hidden in that. He rarely exposed the magnitude or the majesty of his own state of being. But occasionally he would do things that would just be amazing to you. But to me, he was bent upon making anyone who came before him realize their own dignity. I was amazed at how many people would come to the ashram with innumerable questions, and they would leave with a sense of fullness, of completeness. He wouldn't make you completely attached to him. He would make you attached to yourself. He would put you in a state where you realize the fullness of your own self. And that to me was the most amazing thing about Swamiji. He never tried to own you because he already knew that Shiva and Shakti owned you. It was just a matter of time before that would express in your heart. And to sit before him, he said, was a blessing because he could see when that would happen. And he used to say, some people come, they fall at my feet, they want initiation, they want this. He said, and really they're running away from some trauma. I'll tell them something. I'll plant the seed. He said, but I know it won't happen for the next 3 lifetimes or maybe 10 lifetimes. But when that seed sprouts, they'll get that. And they'll realize that that's Shiva and Shakti waking up. And he said, I'm just there to plant the seed sometimes. That's why I'm a gardener. Like that.
Okay, beautiful. That's so compassionate. Even he knows that it will happen. So later, it shows his height of consciousness also, that how he knew after 3 lifetime only things will happen. Wow. For you, who is Bhairav?
Well, Bhairava is the manifestation of these 3 energies, Aghora, Ghora, and Aghorataari, which represent Icha, Jnana, and Kriya. The trinity of Kashmir Shaivism, Trika Shastra, is such that it's creation, protection, and destruction. Okay, Shrishti, Sthiti, and Samhara.
Yes.
And Bhairava, the very word Bhairava, Ba, Ra, and Va, represent those 3 things. Parana means, the maintenance of creation. Ravana is to destroy creation, Ravana, and Vamana is to bring creation out again. So there you have, in Bhairava's own name, you have the essence of Trika. And that's why Bhairava and these tantras of monistic Shaivism are called the Bhairava tantras, the 64 Bhairava tantras.
Wow, beautiful. How to get joy, or what joy is for you?
Joy. I think joy for me is what Swamiji said. Treat the world around you as your teacher. Everybody you meet, like meeting you today, we've talked before, see that there's some lesson to learn in everything that's happening around you. There are no coincidences. There's no coincidences. But everything is being orchestrated for, if you have a sincere desire to find your own self and find God, everything is being orchestrated to help that. There is nothing which is, we say, oh, wow, there's a really fantastic coincidence happened. Somebody did this and that. I have seen so many times now how Swamiji works behind the scenes, because he saw what had to happen in the future, and he knew all the people that would be attracted to this. When John Hughes asked Swamiji, what should we do in the future? Should we stay in India? Should we? He said, no. Go back to your own country, gather a small group, and study my teachings. This is enough. The rest will take care of itself. Wow. So, understanding that what you do in your day, for instance, I'm staying in a hotel here right in Kathmandu. I go every day to the dining room in the morning. It's free breakfast. I have my breakfast in the corner, aloof. And somebody said that, I was a meditation teacher or something. The other day, a mother and her daughter came up. Everybody comes here to go to the Kailash Yatra. She came up to the table and she said, my daughter has a question for you. I said, oh, really? Can I answer that? She said, yes. Somebody said, you're a meditation teacher. Do you know anything about this? And she showed me her phone, and it was Lakshmanjoo Academy.
Wow. Wow.
It's the Lakshmanju Academy. I said, yes, I know a little bit about that. I think if you go onto that, you'll see that they have webinars and they have a lot of information on meditation. And she said, I'm very interested, I don't know why, in Kashmir Shaivism. I said, well, do the link, register, and see what happens. The next day I was in the dining room breakfast. The mother and the daughter came along and said, oh, George, you're on that webinar. I said, yeah, that's okay. Why didn't you tell us? I said, well, you would find out yourself. And Swamiji said, you can't force somebody to love Shiva. You can't force somebody to love Ganesh. You can't force them. If the grace is there, their own hearts will open up and they'll create a space in their life to follow whatever path, whatever resonates in their heart.
Wow. So beautiful. What is love for you?
Love is the key and the answer, Swamiji has said. Love. The universe, he's done so many talks where people ask about that. He said, love is everything. Without love, there's no life. There's no life. And he used to say, you should love your spiritual practice. And he used to laugh because there were a few Western people around him. He said, you should love your spiritual practice and you should love God as much as you loved your first girlfriend or boyfriend. He said, and that first love was all-encompassing. You were burning with desire. You couldn't be away from that person. You thought about them 24 hours a day. You had to be with that person who you'd chosen in your own teenage years to be. He said, that was your whole life. He said, when you have that much love and intensity for God, you'll be enlightened in no time, he said.
Yeah.
He said, because God can't keep you away. If you love God, he can't keep you away. And he said, God is not just he, God is she, God is Shaktipat, God is Shiva and Shakti both.
Yes. Beautiful. So true. For you, what is trick for you what is trick for you?
Trika, you mean?
Trika for you.
The three? I try to find, well, you see, in Kashmir Shaivism, the main practice is the awareness of breath. And a lot of people say, oh, Swamiji's gone. How do I get initiated? How do I get initiated in Shaivism? I know the practices concern breath, the inward breath, the outward breath, and the junction points. The answer came to me one day, and by something that Swamiji said very, very deeply. He said, actually, you were initiated when you took your first breath.
Wow.
When you were born and the doctor held you upside down and he slapped you, which they do in the Western world, or when your umbilical cord was cut from your mother and you took your first breath, he said you were initiated by Shiva and Shakti at that moment. Because in your mother's womb, you were fed by your mother. Your mother was Shiva and Shakti. In fact, your mother was the play of the two infinite Devis. She was responsible for the splitting of the egg and the embryo growing and everything. When you came out, the umbilical cord through which you used to get all of your nourishment and breathing was severed. So somebody else had to take care of you then, and that was Shiva and Shakti breathing life into you. That was your first initiation. He said, at some stage during your life, somebody will come along, if you're blessed, a master, a book. Somebody will say, this is something I can meditate watching my breath. I can sit down and just close my eyes, and I can just be aware of my breath, not the physical breath, the subtle breath, prana, moving. And I can just watch my breath going in and out and watching especially the turning points. And Swamiji used to say, the most fruitful practice is if you keep your attention between your eyebrows, Bhumadhya, and imagine your breath is flowing from there. Be aware that, and stay here, watch your breath go out. In your imagination, watch it go out and watch it come back. Just that practice alone, simple as it is, he said, that is the real essence. And when somebody tells you that, you start to practice for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, and one day you realize, oh, I was initiated by Shiva and Shakti when I took my first breath. Mm-hmm. Because it's the first and the last thing we ever do is we take a breath. The last thing we do is we breathe out, we stop breathing, we go back into our subtle body, we go off somewhere to some other loka, and we come back and do it again. This is samsara. This is the cycle.
Wow. So beautifully said. Thank you, George. Any message for the seekers, spiritual seekers, you like to say in the end?
No, just if you're interested in Kashmir Shaivism, fine. All the information is there. I think you can put the Lakshmanjoo Academy website there as a link. For those of you that are in your own tradition, Babaji's tradition, you have so much literature there, Yogananda's, literature, there, and it's interesting because in his translation of Bhagavad Gita, that verse 27 of chapter 4, which is about pranapan, he's the only one that has done the same as Kashmir Shaivism. In your lineage, you call it Hamsa. We call it Hamsa or Soham. But the sequence of that is the same as Kashmir Shaivism. And this Hamsa Soham is the essence of Shaiva practice, the awareness of the breath, the flowing out of the breath, the flowing in. And Swamiji said it's very easy for the wise. It's difficult for those just starting on the path to remember to watch your breath. Like from now on, just watch as many breaths as you can during the rest of the day. Well, it's still daytime there. And you'll find you do it for a few minutes and then you're off with the fairies. You're doing your own thing. Even when you sit to meditate, you do your mantra, and after 5 minutes, you're in a daydream. That's okay. That's part of the nature of Kaumari, the goddess of the mind. She plays you away from what you're doing. Swamiji would say, just easily bring your mind back to your mantra or your breath or whatever, and keep doing that, and you'll find that in an hour's meditation or half an hour, instead of spending 20 minutes in just thoughts, vikalpa, you'll find that time stretches more and more, and you tend to sink into deep states of meditation. Meditation is important. Awareness is important.
Beautiful. Anything which I have not touched and you like to share, please share.
No, I think everybody, if you have faith in God and you have grace, and you must have grace to be listening to this, because the grace is what attracted you to this path, and take some time, give some time to your spiritual practice. Don't be afraid to put your phone on airplane mode, and have some time to yourself, especially if you're doing your spiritual practice. Set aside, Swamiji would say, set aside 2 times a day, dawn and dusk, around about the junctions of the day. If you meditate at those 2 times, he said, you'll make great progress, because nature is also pushing you inside for your deeper experience of meditation. And for the rest of the day, he would say, enjoy, love people, eat simple food, offer your food to God before you eat. And he would always say, don't get bogged down and think you're just such a small, limited human being with all of my worldly problems. Because he would always say, be broad. Think that you are Shiva and Shakti. Don't boast. Don't have a T-shirt, I'm Shiva, I'm Shakti. Don't tell people that. Because the moment you tell people, then you just want to project yourself. Be humble in your spiritual practice. The more hidden you are, he said, the more your life and spiritual path will blossom.
Thank you very much, George, for joining today and giving us such a beautiful understanding and a little bit of view of Sri Lakshmanjoo Maharaj, and so much of understanding, so much to learn. And we will look forward maybe again to have a podcast with you to understand things in more deeper sense. But you completed your commitment with us. Thank you very much everyone for doing this podcast. Thank you.
It's been a year that it's been in the making. There were so many obstacles, but everything happens just at the right time. And I'm sure I was ready, your audience is ready. And please, I'm sharing whatever I have learned from Swamiji. I'm not a guru. I feel very fortunate, very blessed to have spent time at his feet, for him to and to be able to share this knowledge, which John and Denise Hughes spent a good portion of their life recording, and we're still involved. We're a very small group. There are Mrs. Claudia, my partner of the last 35 years. She has been uploading all of these little snippets, beautiful things if you put Swami Lakshmanjoo YouTube, you have an infinite number of clips there. And all of those are basically for the general public, The deeper aspects of it are there also, but that's for the individual. We've published 12 books already in manuscript form, in transcript form, that are available with the actual audios, and they're all available on Amazon.
That will be great for people to go through them. Thank you very much, Charles.
And may Babaji and the lineage of the, Kriya Yoga masters bless everybody, because I know that's a very big part of your own tradition.
Thank you.
Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev.